Have you ever played a game of chess where you traded the queens really early, but you still were able to attack your opponent's king? It doesn't happen very often, but when it happens, it's pretty special. The game I'm about to show you, and actually need to switch to this scene here. The game I'm about to show you was played on Immortal Game. Now, that's a play to earn crypto site. Sometimes I'll play over there to earn some crypto while I'm playing chess. I was playing a strong player over there, rated about 2200, which on that site is very, very strong. I think those ratings are a little bit lower than on like chess.com. So exactly how strong this player was, I don't know, but the game was pretty crazy. And we're going to take a look at it right now. So I was white and I played my bishop to c4 right away. This is called the bishop's opening. There's a lot of tricks and traps, and it's very kind of a tricky line. And my opponent plays c6. Now, c6 is a move that's very obvious what black wants to do. They want to play d5 if I let them. For example, if I were to, I don't know, play a random move like knight to f3, they're probably going to play d5. And after this, they've now got control of the center. They're attacking my bishop. And even if I throw in a check and try to win a pawn, there's bishop to d7, which actually saves everything for black. Because if I take the pawn, I lose my bishop. And of course, if I trade, then black can recapture with the knight. And look at black's strong center. Okay, so that's kind of what black would like to do in a perfect world. But one thing about the move c6, and you want to remember this in your games, is a lot of times it's a good idea, instead of knight to f3, what I played in the game was d4. A lot of times it's a good idea to do this because normally when you play d4, your opponent's going to take it, and you're going to have to take back with the queen if you do this without getting your knight out first, and then they're going to attack you with their knight. But notice black can't do that because the pawn is now blocking the knight from going there. So that's why d4 is actually a much better move once black has played c6. Okay, so I talked about this in a previous video, but you know, good to refresh sometimes. So anyway, I played d4 and black played knight to f6. Now, this actually transposes into a line that I'm familiar with that I teach in my course, where it would start out, if they played knight to f6 right away, when you play d4, this is one of the gambits that I teach, they're actually supposed to take with the pawn and not the knight. And the reason taking with the knight is bad is because now you can capture here with the pawn, and it turns out that the knight doesn't really have a lot of options. And if black were to play c6 in this position, we would kind of transpose to what happened in the game. Okay, so I knew that this was going to be a good line for me. So that's what happened here, c6, d4. And after knight to f6, I just took it because I knew that black's going to have to probably take back. And here we are in the same position. Okay, so that's what was happening so far. Now, unfortunately for me, I forgot the reason that this was bad for black. And the reason is actually the move queen to e2. And it's an annoying move for black because a lot of times when the knight is attacked, you would like to defend it with one of your pawns. But in this case, let's just say d5. Not only can I en passant it, but I also pin the knight at the same time so the knight can't retreat and kind of defend everything and attack my bishop. Black's just in trouble now, okay? So that's why queen e2 is a very strong move. Now, I forgot that in the game, and what I ended up doing was sacrificing my bishop so that I could follow it up with a queen fork. And you might say, oh, that's a nice move, and, you know, what's black going to do? Well, black's going to simply go back. And to get my piece back, I have to take it, but then we end up with this really even position, and after the queen trades, Stockfish says it's dead equal. You can see the eval bar over there. It's point, you know, maybe slight advantage for black, but it's pretty much just an equal position. And some of you might look at this and say, why are you showing us this game, Nels? This was like a boring game. Like, what could possibly happen from this position? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's take a look. So d5, very nice move by my opponent, getting the pawn in the center, letting out the bishop, takes away the square from my knight. You know, makes a lot of sense. I castled, and I brought my rook to the open file. Okay, very, you know, I'm just following basic principles right now. Castle before move 10. I think it was actually on move 10. Bring the rook to the open file. And here is where it starts to get interesting. So I have to make a decision about the knight anyway. I don't want to just let black take this and totally mess up my pawn structure, right? So I said, well, I could go to e5 and we're going to get another trade. Or I could go to g5 and maybe, you know, in some world I was envisioning after I chase the bishop back, let's just say maybe my knight can hop in here and who knows what might happen. So let's try it. Also, it's defended by the bishop, so even if the king comes up, I'm not worried about my knight, you know, being captured right away. And sure enough, my opponent does play king to g6. Now, here is where it starts to get really interesting. h3. So what I'd noticed about black's bishop is that, you know, usually when the bishop comes here, it either wants to do one of two things. One, it wants to trade for my knight, which has now been moved. So that's not an option. Or a lot of times when you chase it away, it just goes back. It just kind of runs back. And if you chase it away, it runs back. And it's kind of an annoying little bishop. But in this case, where's it going to go? If it goes here, actually, I did play h3. If it goes here, I'm just going to trap it. See that? So I'm like, okay, it can't go there. It could go here, but then I'm going to attack it. And if it goes here, I'm going to take it. And if it goes here, well, that seems awkward because the knight really would probably want to go there. And so I said, hey, let's attack the bishop. So here we go. G4. And now he goes all the way back to C8. Now, pop quiz for you guys. What happens if he would have taken my pawn? What was I going to play in this position? Well, the eval bar might have given that away, but rook to E6 is checkmate. There's a knight. There's a bishop. There's a pawn. There's a rook. I mean, that is crazy. But it just goes to show you don't need queens to get some nice checkmates and attack the king, right? Like if you have a lot of active pieces, hey, a rook, a knight, a pawn, and a bishop is enough. You know what I mean? So that's what would have happened. And my opponent obviously saw that. And so they went back to C8. And again, you know, they didn't want to block the knight. And so they figured, all right, going all the way back was the best option. Now, I was feeling pretty good here because when your opponent moves their developed bishop back to the starting square, you know something is going for you, right? I've got two knights, I've got a rook, I've got a pawn. I was feeling like, all right, now's the time to try to attack the king. So F4, I got pawns, I'm going to use them. I'm going to play F5 and you know, attack the king. H6, which it's kind of a good move because it's putting pressure on my knight and creating a square for the king. But what I noticed was that I could play F5 right now and black doesn't have time to run because my knight is still there temporarily, which is going to force the king to go over. All right, great. And here I made a decision, which was a tough decision to make, especially because of the fact that the queens are off the board. See, a lot of times when I'm playing chess, if queens are on the board and I see an opportunity to sacrifice a piece to attack the king, I'm like, let's do it, you know, because the queens are very powerful. You could probably get checkmate. When queens are off the board, if you start sacrificing pieces, it very rarely works out. Okay, so that's why I was very hesitant to play the move that I played. But what I did in the game was bringing the knight in for the check. Now, this is an annoying move because let's just say the king tries to run. Well, they step into the discovered check with my rook, and now I can actually take here with check. And if they try to take me back, there's a follow-up fork. And there's all kinds of nasty threats that black has to watch out for, okay? So they really have to take my knight if I'm going to go here. But then I recapture with the other knight, and we have the same exact thing. Now, some of you are thinking, wait, can't the king just go defend it? And now when you take, you don't have the follow-up knight fork, right? And that's exactly what happened in the game. We get this position. So what do you think I did to follow up from here? All right, well, if you had a chance to look at that, that was pretty obvious, I think. I brought the bishop out with check, and it forces my opponent's king to come up. And if you're wondering why can't they go backwards and run away, well, what would I have played here? If you had a chance to look at that, that's correct. This is checkmate. And again, we see no queens are on the board, but if you put your pieces in the right locations and your opponent, you know, doesn't have active pieces, you can still checkmate a king, right? So, of course, my opponent saw that, and they played the best move, king to c5. And right around here, I was kind of starting to feel like, man, I'm kind of running out of pieces. Yes, I have the rooks. Yes, I have the bishop and some pawns, but black's about to start bringing out their pieces. And if they can get these two pieces developed and bring the rooks to the center, I'm done for. Like, I've got to do something quick. Okay, I've got to do something right away. And so I decided on rook a to d1, getting both rooks ready to participate. And then after knight to a6, what do you guys think I played here? All right, well, if you had a chance to look at that, and apparently this wasn't the best move according to the engine, but I noticed that I could play bishop to e3 check, and it doesn't allow the king to run backwards. This is something that you want to pay attention to. A lot of times when you're attacking, if the king can run back and hide, your attack's going to be over, right? You're not going to have enough. So I'm trying to prevent that. And so that's why I have this here and the rook here, and it cuts off both of the escape squares, okay? So the king goes here. And again, I was like, okay, I got to do something quick. What should I play? So what do you guys think I played here? All right, if you had a chance to look at that, the move is c4 check. And again, the engine says that wasn't the best approach, but in my mind, I'm thinking, well, the bishop's cutting off this. I mean, probably black's got to take it, but then I lure it a little bit closer, and they did take. And then I followed up with the rook check. Now, for some crazy reason, Stockfish says this position is completely equal. like dead equal, which is funny to me because I'm down a piece, but I'm attacking the king. So I'm kind of thinking like, why is it a draw? Like there must be some crazy back and forth line that it sees. I couldn't find it when I was analyzing the game, but it must be there. But I'm thinking I'm either going to win with checkmate or I'm going to lose because I'm down a piece. I don't know what Stockfish is saying. Anyway, what do you think I played in this position? Actually, I'll ask you a follow-up another question. What do you think I played and how do you think the game ended? The game ended actually pretty quickly from this position, even though it's supposed to be a draw. How do you guys think it ended? Let me know in the comments if you figured it out. All right, well, if you had a chance to look at that, the move that I played was a4 check. And my logic was, okay, if the king steps into this discovered check, I'm going to be happy. So for example, if the king moves here, I'm happy because now I can move this rook wherever I want. Probably here looks pretty nice. I get a check and I'm taking this rook. And now this is pinned and now I'm actually winning with material. So I'm happy about that, right? So I knew that the king didn't want to go into the line of the bishop, right? So where's it going to go? There's only one place, king to a5. And then what am I going to do? Well, I had an idea here, which apparently wasn't great, but it tricked my opponent. So if you didn't already calculate it from the previous time I asked you to pause, if you want to pause again, what do you think I played here? All right, if you had a chance to look at that, it's bishop to d2 check. And then after king to b6, I played a5 check. And this move is actually not good because it lets my opponent's king escape. That's what he did. He escaped. He escaped right into a checkmate. Right into a checkmate. That was actually my trap. That was what I saw. I was like, I can go back here. I can throw in the check. And if he tries to run, which this is super natural. Like when you're running with your king, 9 times out of 10, if your opponent lets you get backwards, you're fine. You've escaped successfully. But in this case, I noticed because of the way that my rook and my bishop and my pawn were set up, that I was actually going to have the checkmate. Now, what black needed to play was king to b5 or king to c5, and then they're better. Black is better, and the game's going to go on. Apparently, there's not really anything good for me here, which is amazing because it still looks like pretty scary. I think I was going to play bishop back to here, and I thought I had a pretty nice position. Oh, he just sidesteps. Yeah, and black is okay. The pawn might push forward and create an escape here. The knight is kind of helping, and I don't really have anything. That's all my opponent had to do. But instead, they went back. And this is how the game ended. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know I did. And it just goes to show, even without queens on the board, you can still get some amazing checkmates if you activate your pieces right away. And notice how I didn't give my opponent time to ever really use any of these pieces. That is crucial. Even if I have to sacrifice some pawns, that's what you want to be looking for in your games. All right, guys, I'll see you next time. As always, stay sharp, play smart, take care.